Hello and welcome to Houston RC's build video of GL Racing's latest kit, the GTR. The tools we will be using for this build are going to be a 1.5, 1.3, and 0.9mm hex driver. In addition to the hex drivers, we will be using a fresh hobby knife, soft pliers, calipers, and a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. For this build, in addition to the standard kit, we added the following optional parts: the hybrid brass chassis, the aluminum servo saver, the aluminum steering knuckles, the rear ride height bushing mounts, and the optional front and side dampers which are easily adjustable. Inside the box, you will find that the parts and screws are in small Ziploc bags as pictured. We recommend leaving the screws in their bags until they are needed. GL does a great job at labeling each bag. We also recommend downloading the latest version of the manual and printing it out so it is easier to build. The actual build took 4 hours to build from start to finish. You will get to see the sped up version of this over the next few minutes. We will pause at certain segments to emphasize what we are doing. These are simply tricks and tips that we have picked up over the course of several builds and would like to share with you. For example, here we are showing you how to use the hobby knife to remove the excessive plastic moldings from the arms. In the event that the arm is not free, we recommend taking the hobby knife and going through it a few times inside the arm before installing the cup. Once installed, take a 1.5 or 1.3 hex driver and spin it around a few times like this. When it comes to the front arms, make sure that they go up and down freely and that there is no bind. If you need to loosen or shave more plastic molding, this is the time to do it. Just like the front arms, the side links also need to be nice and free so make sure they are able to move freely before proceeding to the next steps. If you bought the optional servo saver kit, don't follow the steps in the manual and instead go to GL's website and download the instructions specific to this part.
Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me. So I'm at the part where I am done with the arms and I want to put on the knuckles. So essentially what I'm going to do now is, before I get to that part, I'm going to check everything. This is another part that I see a lot of folks make mistakes on. So let's go ahead and let's see if I can get in the camera properly. So I'm going to lift this arm and I'm going to drop it. So what I'm looking for is gravity to take care of it. So that's the upper, then this is my lower. So they both seem to be doing great. Let's check the left sides. So you can see it's nice and free. That's the upper. Let's check the lower. And I'm gently tapping it up. Do it. In fact, when I go down or flip it, they automatically all went down. Check the side pods. So same thing. Should be nice and free flowing. If this part is not working this way, then you want to stop what you're doing and keep working on the car. Okay, so next up we are at the part of the manual where you are supposed to put spacers on the knuckles, as you can see over here, and this determines your ride height. Now the manual says to put 3 shims, SM2 shims on the bottom and 1 SM2 shim on the top. If you are a Houston RC racer, at our track we tend to prefer anywhere from roughly 2 millimeters. Let's go for 2 millimeters plus or minus 0.02. So if you're looking for 2 millimeters roughly, it's easier if you just put 3 up top and 1 at the bottom. Okay, so we are done with the, I guess, front to mid section of the chassis. We've got the side links on, they're nice and loose. We've verified the steering is nice and smooth. We've verified the arms drop by themselves, both the upper and lower. Now we're basically on page 10, which is telling us to build the front shocks. On this particular build, we're going to be going with the adjustable front shocks, which are a pretty good upgrade to have. That's this guy here. Okay, so next up we are building part number GL-GTR OP021, which are the optional side dampers. They essentially would replace the stock dampers that are here on the side that help you rotate left to right, as you can see that. Let's get everything that it came with out of the box first. And on all of these, I'm basically going to start with my hands first, as you can see. So it's 28 scale. Most of the time you don't need tools to do this kind of stuff. This part right here, hoping the camera can pick that up, has a little excessive shaving on the outer side. Now this is a side damper ball cup holder, so if it's got something on the outside, it doesn't matter. But it's just, if you're doing a good quality build, take your pride in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it, as hopefully you can see that, and with my hobby knife I'm going to get rid of some of this excessive, and it's really small so it may be hard. I'm just going to get rid of the excessive plastic. So one of these ball cups right now, just through basic installation, and you guys saw how I used my hand, has a hairline fracture right here. The other one is nice and smooth. You want to detect all these things while you're building the car. This means that if the car has a hard hit, that hairline fracture, unfortunately, is going to be the first thing to break. As you're building this, just remember, and this brings me to why they gave us more. Clearly, GL is aware of this and is including more spares right out the bat. So it's not a part we have to buy, but what this will probably do is, like, here's a quick test, right? And hopefully I won't regret this, but I'm gonna hold this and I'm gonna rip it out. I can't. It's perfect. Let's grab this one, the one with the hairline fracture. Oh, would you look at that? It came off. So this is now going to be in the trash, and we're going to open up a brand new one. So these are things that you need to know in your builds, and double check, triple check. I did in front of you guys. No tools were used, and I still managed to break one. Sometimes it's as easy as over threading. So this is how it should look like. No hairline fracture anywhere. Now I'm going to measure both of these to make sure they are even. Let's move on. It's the part that everybody hates, which is putting the small little black gasket in the hole. So one more time, the best way to do that is kind of put some grease on there first, and then use your bearing tool to see if you can snake it in. As you can see, it now sits in there. It took me under a minute to do that, and it's plush. That's how you want to build it. Okay, so unfortunately this is probably one of the most difficult parts of the build, and I see a lot of people make mistakes here. So my first advice would be to put a little bit of lube on the black ring. Then you want to actually drop it in there. Resist the urge to use your 1.5 or a hobby knife. Use like a ball bearing popper or something, and just gently push it in. And once it's in, I tend to prefer to use this part here. I'll actually link it. It's just one of those I guess bearing installation, bearing measuring, bearing popper tools that we use all the time. Obviously it's a little gentler to use. Once the O-ring is seated in there, kind of just rotate it around. Don't scuff it, don't scratch it. And I'm not sure if the camera's going to catch all that detail, but the O-ring needs to sit in there. I'm not a big fan of using pliers on shock bodies because I prefer them to be smooth throughout. But if you have soft shock pliers from Tamiya, the ones that don't mar, you can use them. Now what's important is that when they're built, that you measure that both of these are equal length. $30, but it's a really nice part, and I can tell you in all my driving and testing of this car, I don't know if you guys have been following us on Facebook, but we built a very stock one first that just had a brass chassis and nothing else. Then we built one with camber knuckles and a servo saver. Then the third one we built had a full-blown front end only, and I actually raced that one for one of our series races. And then this one has the front, the side shocks as well upgraded into it. So we like to build them in phases so we can help our customers understand where they need to spend money. And the shock bodies are done. You can see them. The way these work is they go on the front of the car and they move up and down like that. So I'm going to take Kyosho's 30,000 grease, and I'm going to take my 1.3 and I'm going to put the grease all around the body itself and then actually inside of it as well. So that concludes the front shocks. Okay, this is page 11, the part where we build the diff. In the manual, this is what it looks like, so you can kind of see what I'm doing next. I do use the Kyosho ball diff grease that GL also in their manual mentions. So let's get right to it. So before we do anything, what I like to do is, as you can see, it already has a few E-clips, C-clips, and balls in there. This diff is unique to the GTR, so I'm going to unpack everything here. And the smaller parts, I'm just going to make a quick note and move some of the stuff to the side so I don't mix it up. Rather than building it with a lot of people do it differently. What I'm doing is I'm actually just going to dump the entire contents of the bag in here. Parts will be pre-greased for me. I guess when you build about 40 to 50 diffs a year, you tend to get a little quicker with how you want to do stuff. As I'm taking off the little plastic stuff from the tree, I can see some excessive plastic. Go ahead and shave all that off. You should not be in a rush to build anything to 1/28 scale. Just take your time, do it right. But grease comes in handy at this point because it's going to hold by itself, and that's it. Just a simple click and it's already in there. I don't know if you could hear that tick sound, but your diff is now completely built. Okay, next up we are building the motor pod, and the manual covers all of this on page 11 right over there if you guys can see it. So we're just going to follow along and build it. It's a lot of small pieces. Be really mindful where it says M2x3 versus M2x4. You don't want to mix those up. So You can kind of watch me build it or fast forward. Point out something. Page 13 has this diagram here that says hole mismatched, and it's telling you if it's not smooth, you want to basically remove the 2x3 KM screw so you can see. You want to make sure this lines up. If this does not line up, then you need to follow the next step, which is put a shim, one or more of the SM3, which are just 0.1 millimeter shims. So we're talking about 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters worth of shims before you put part D18 in there, which is a ball stud, and then check again. If this is not lined up correctly, your car will not handle properly, and you'll be troubleshooting tires, you'll be troubleshooting motor, you'll be troubleshooting radio settings, you'll be troubleshooting servo, steering. I've seen it all, guys. This is what you want to take your sweet time on. The number one thing I do when somebody brings me a car to fix or go through is I take this off and look at this. And you can do it in the build process. It's way easier. So please do not rush this step on page 13. Good luck. This is the stock one. You can see it's black, it's plastic. If you over tighten this, you will be putting too much force on the bearing. This is the upgraded one. So $37 gets you a really nice all aluminum part. Looks super cool. And now it's the bearing just slides in there perfectly. That's my bearing in there. I'm going to take the diff. I'm going to slide it through there and check this out. Look at that. Anyway, so we got the diff in there, and now let's put the left side. Let me get my 1.5. Okay, so what I've done here is I've just kind of outlined all the parts that I need just like it shows in the diagram, and I'm making sure that everything that I need to assemble this is here. The manual is telling me to put 30,000 grease, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So I've got everything out here, I've laid it out. Now that I've confirmed it's all here, I'm going to go ahead and assemble this. then I'm going to test my left to right. Oh, it feels beautiful. Okay, so we are now on page 16 of the manual. Take this rubber band, and that's to hold the batteries, and just slide it underneath.
And that concludes our project for today, the GTR from GL Racing. On your right is the bare chassis fully built. On your left is the chassis with electronics installed. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe so you can see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching.